NHL Trade Deadline has gone and passed, and the Calgary Flames made a grand total of 0 moves. This just revealed a lot about the Flames, especially about Craig Conroy's temperament with trades and strategy, and he spoke out about his reasoning for the quiet deadline. Goodbye, Dylan Cozens trade rumors. We're going to get into all that and more in this video, but first I want to welcome you to Flames Digest. I'm Mark Griffith. If you're new around here and you love the Flames, make sure you subscribe so you can stay up to date on all the latest news, updates, reports, and rumors revolving around your Calgary Flames. We would love to welcome you to the Flames Digest family. Before we get into the deadline talk, let's talk about last night's game real quick, as the Flames, of course, wrapped up their 6-game road trip, this daunting road trip that the Flames have been on for what seems like forever. I think because the Flames only had one home game since the Four Nations face-off break, it seems like the Flames haven't played in Calgary in forever. But they finally wrapped it up. They had 5 out of 10 possible points going into last night's game in Dallas. They were hoping to go home with 7 of a possible 12. That was not the case, as they lost this one in overtime. So still, 6 of a possible 12 points on this road trip isn't terrible if you're on the side of you want the Flames to make the playoffs. And now that the Flames have done nothing at the deadline, I expect most Flames fans are probably, gonna get on board with the playoff push here. But the game itself, a 3-2 loss in overtime. The Flames are actually up in this one, but it kind of seemed by the end of, the third period of this game, or if you want to say the 18th period of this long road trip, the Flames kind of held on to secure a point in this one. I do have to say, Joel Farabee, that was easily his best game as a Calgary Flame. I thought he played really well. I thought Kevin Ball looked pretty good as well. There were a few others. But if we get into the box score here, Dan Vladar, in what many thought could be his last game as a Calgary Flame, we know that's not the case now, but he played pretty well, gave up 3 goals on 27 shots, a sub-900 save percentage for him, but he really held his own in that third period, I gotta say. He made some big saves, and I think he really showed that he does want to be a Calgary Flame, which is great. He's made it very clear that he loves being in Calgary, so hopefully, the Flames can actually sign him to another deal. It was kind of funny. We saw Connor Murphy get signed to a 2-way contract yesterday, so a lot of people thought, oh my gosh, that's the end of Vladar. But no, Vladar had a very good game. As we get into the skaters who got on the score sheet, just 3, even though the Flames got 2 goals. So Farabee got a goal. Michael Backlund finally got a goal again. I believe that was his first since January. And Blake Coleman gets an assist. So essentially their line was the Flames' most productive line last night, and probably the best line as well, after they were the only line that didn't wow me in the game against Philly. But great to see that they were able to get on the score sheet. Happy for all those guys. Farabee could have had a lot more than just the 1 point on the night. It was so exciting to watch. I mean, how have I not said this yet? But what a freaking goal by him. What nasty move. Such a good goal. We're lucky to have him. But normally I'd show the standings after this, but I actually want to show them after we get out of the deadline talk. So let's get right into this deadline that the Flames did have. In case you missed it, and this is the first Flames piece of media you're seeing since the trade deadline has officially passed, the Flames made absolutely 0 moves, and we have quite a few quotes here from Craig Conroy, which I really think that making 0 moves reveals a lot about where the Flames are as an organization, and kind of Conroy's thoughts on what this team is and his plans going forward. He was always going to stick to his plan, and clearly that is the case. So it reveals a lot about the team, but also about our general manager. But here's a good quote from Craig himself. So he said, "These guys have done such a great job to put us in a situation where we have an opportunity to make the playoffs. I feel like you have to give them the chance." That was Craig Conroy on not making a move at the deadline. So this more so alludes to the Flames not, subtracting at the deadline, not making a move that would make the Flames potentially worse and get them out of the playoff race, of course. So, not giving up a guy like Andersson. You can even throw in Vladar. I know there were other names that were rumored, Mirmanov and Hanley. Would that have made the Flames that much worse? I'm not too sure, but you can even throw in names like Kadri, Coleman, and Huberdeau there as well. But that's just one quote. I do have more, but they will be coming up. This is a good little set of tweets here from Ryan Pike. So he chatted with Flames GM Craig Craig Conroy, and these were Conroy's thoughts. So nobody really needed a third party to facilitate deals today. That was one of, I think, the top things on the Flames agenda going into the trade deadline, was potentially being one of those third-party brokers we've been talking about for weeks and weeks now, about how the Flames, they really have so much cap space, but it sounded like nobody really needed that extra team who kind of gets like a mid-round pick if they retain some salary off a random contract. So if they're not needed for the NHL's Saturday game, club may look at getting Klapka and Solovyov into this weekend's Wranglers game. So that was another piece of news. They got sent down to the AHL. They went down to the Wranglers, so it looks like they will be with the Wranglers for now, playing more important hockey. And boy, do the Wranglers need it. The Wranglers are terrible right now. They got blown up again by Coachella Valley in their last game. But that's good. Them playing important hockey, I think, is very good. Better than having them, not playing any hockey really at the NHL level. So another one here, credited the team's success for quieting the noise around the team, and credited the team's veterans for setting the tone for the season. This was Craig Conroy saying that, of course. So he just says, the team doing this good really helped quiet the noise around the team. That was very, very prevalent and relevant at last year's trade deadline. Of course, we saw Jacob Markstrom get upset, and other names as well. But the team really wasn't interested in the rental market this year. The Flames, would it have made sense for them to get a rental anyway? Not really. And the market was crazy. You saw some of those trades or the value that some guys went for. I mean, you look at the trade the Leafs made for Brandon Carlo, because that's a guy who the Flames were rumored at getting. Thank God we didn't pay a king's ransom to get Carlo. I know he isn't necessarily a rental, but still, that was quite a steep one. Which is interesting overall. Another name we have to bring up, Dylan Cozens. I said it right at the beginning of the video, but the Flames do not pull the trigger on a Cozens trade. That was kind of expected over the last few days here after it was announced that the Sabres were kind of looking for roster players. Very interesting trade that the Senators made for Dylan Cozens. Would we have even had value that Ottawa had in that trade? Kind of, but overall, just a very strange one. Kind of glad that we, after all, did not go for the workhorse from Whitehorse. Oh, whoa, I'm getting ahead of myself here. Last little quote here is from Eric Francis, kind of why Conroy didn't become a third-party broker. So Conroy said the Flames would have been happy to retain salary as a third party in a deal, but the asks all revolved around retaining 2 years of salary, which the Flames weren't interested in. The Flames would have been happy to retain salary for the rest of this year, as they obviously have a boatload of cap space. But hey, maybe Conroy is looking at the cap space for the next couple years and wants to actually use it on players that will play for the Flames. So in that way, it's fair. I still do wonder kind of what would have happened if the Flames had retained some, and what deals it would have even, entailed, essentially. Like, you look at a lot of the deals made today, again, there weren't really any third parties involved. There were, but not by much. So interesting overall as to why that didn't happen. So it was a dead deadline for the Flames, but that's not a bad thing at all. If we take a look at the standings now that the trade deadline is over, where are the Flames? Well, of course, they're still in that second wildcard spot. The point they got last night does put them a point ahead of the Vancouver Canucks. The Canucks do have the game in hand now. The Flames, slowly have made their way up in the Pacific Division standings as well. They're only 3 points behind the LA Kings, who picked up Andrei Kuzmenko today. Philadelphia Flyers legend Andrei Kuzmenko is now back in the division with the Kings, but Flames do have 2 more games played than the Kings, so the Kings are ahead in that way, while as well as points, of course. But the Flames slowly making their way up. They're only 8 points behind the Oilers as well, which with 20 games left is a significant amount. But the way the Oilers are playing, who knows? The Blues, as we know, are making their way up the standings as well, just 2 points back of the Flames. Utah 3 points back in the same amount of games played, and Anaheim 7 points back now. But they do have a game in hand, so it'll be an interesting race to the finish. Now, while the deadline wasn't all that exciting for Flames fans, I do have something to be excited about, to talk about. And what's the most exciting thing to talk about if you're a Flames fan right now? Well, it has to be Zane Parekh, of course. And with his goal last night, NHL Flames prospect Zane Parekh becomes just the 10th defenseman in OHL history to hit the 100-point mark in a season, and the first to do it in 14 years since Ryan Ellis in 2011. If we look at the actual stats here, the men who have done it, well, I guess boys in a way that have done it. Zane Parekh, as we just saw, becomes the 10th defenseman in OHL history to hit 100 points in a season. He's a 55 away from the top one of Brian Fogarty back in 1988-89. What a year that was for Calgary. If you go down the list, I know it's a little bit small, but you can go in, and it looks like Zane Parekh can really climb that list, obviously. He could even have arguably the fourth best season in OHL history if he kind of continues his pace here as a defenseman, but just wonderful, wonderful to see. And if you needed to see a picture that had lots of aura, I mean, just look at that guy. Cannot wait for him to be in a Calgary Flames sweater night in and night out. He is just, I mean, fingers crossed, but he is going to be an absolute stud for this franchise. Look at him with that 100th point puck. It's a bit of a tongue twister in a way, but just fantastic to see. Crazy that he's having a better season this year than last year in his draft year. Just what a wonderful player. Now let's wrap up this video with the comment of the day, as we love to do here on the channel. I thought this was kind of a bit of a positive one to look at, as this came from yesterday's video before the actual trade deadline, so still there were chances the Flames could make some trades. But good old Roy here. Roy said, let's see who can golf before we trade for next year. Team spirit is still high. Let's have fun watching the underdogs shine. Go Flames, go. And I just thought a nice positive message. We're going to cheer on the Flames no matter what as they do make this playoff push. And it is true. Just keep the unit together. They seem cohesive, and that's exactly what Conroy ended up doing. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please subscribe like you saw here today, and have a wonderful rest of your day.